Everything in the realm of holiness has its counterpart in the world of unholiness. That's how God created the world. In order for life to be meaningful, there needs to be the ability to make a choice. There needs to be the challenge. And so God created the holy and the unholy. So too within ourselves and our inner psyche. Just like we have studied that we possess the holy soul, the godly soul, and we learned that its source is from oneness, from the wisdom which is one with God. And it contains the 10 faculties, 3 intellectual ones, 7 emotional ones. And then it becomes expressed through the 3 garments of our soul. The garments are our thoughts and our words and our behaviors. Similarly, there's the other soul, which is on the other side, the counterpart to the holy soul. And that is the nefesh, the soul of klipa. As we learned, klipa means the shell or the peel, that which conceals the fruit from inside, the soul which conceals godliness from us. That's the soul that gives us physical vitality. That's the soul that just turns us into regular, living, breathing human beings. This soul contains also the 10 faculties. The way the Kabbalah refers them is the 10 crowns of impurity. Why 10 crowns of impurity? Because a crown sits on top of somebody's head. Now, in an unholy way, the crown can represent arrogance, boastfulness, that is irrational, that is illogical. It's outside of the mind. And the behavior of impurity, the behavior of this impure soul is truly illogical and irrational, as we will see. So this unholy soul of Klippa, it has the 7 negative emotions and the 3 negative realms of intellect, similar to the godly soul. Now, the emotions, this is a general comment, one's emotions are always going to be commensurate to one's intellect because the intellect is the source of one's emotions. So, for example, a young child who doesn't have deep, broad, comprehensive intellect, mature intellect, they're still very immature. Therefore, their emotions, they're going to get excited by small, petty things like the candy or the toy. That's what excites them in life. And they'll get angry and frustrated also from petty things. If somebody takes a lick of their ice cream or plays for a moment with their toy. However, adults, which are meant to be mature and are meant to have mature minds and understand more broadly and deeper important things, then their emotions are supposed to get worked up about important things as well. So their love and their excitement should come from more important things. And what angers them or frustrates them should also come from more important things. So that's a good test about a person's level of maturity. Now, I want to point out something very interesting here, which the Rebbe points out. The difference of how the Alter Rebbe describes the 10 faculties of the godly soul, the holy soul, and the 10 faculties of the unholy soul. Earlier about the godly soul, the Alter Rebbe said, he started off by saying there are the 3 faculties of the mind, which give birth to the 7 emotions of the heart. Here, with the unholy soul, the Alter Rebbe said there are the 7 negative emotions of the heart, and their source is the 3 negative faculties of the mind. He switched the order. Is it mind first and then heart, or first heart and then mind? He also said that in the holy soul, it's the mind which gives birth to the heart, whereas in the unholy soul, it's the mind which serves as the source for the heart. What's the difference? The difference is very, very important. Holiness is when a person behaves as a human is designed to behave. And that is, the human is an intelligent being. First and foremost, the first place that we interact with the world around us or with ourselves begins through the mind. Because the mind is a place of objectivity. The mind can be discerning. The mind can figure out truly what's right and what's wrong. And when the mind figures out the facts on the ground, then it gives birth to healthy emotions, which are commensurate with facts on the ground. And the facts are about what is true, what is not true, what is real, what is holy, what is important, and what's not. That is the way the godly soul operates. First the mind, and then the heart. Any way of unholiness is where things begin to be processed through the heart. Our first instinct of reaction to anything is in the heart. How does it make me feel? Now, when you begin to process things that way, That's not a very healthy way, because how do things make me feel? My heart is only concerned about the self, about pleasure, not about right versus wrong, but about pleasure and pain. So if I begin that way, then my heart will decide what it wants to be right or wrong, what it wants to feel. And then because I am a human being and somewhat of an intelligent being, and I can't walk around behaving so irrationally, the heart will turn to the mind for some assistance in justification, in justifying and explaining why this feeling is okay. But it's really a false justification, somewhat of a false intellect. And we do that all the time. We know that we shouldn't be eating this thing. However, we want to eat this thing. We find pleasure in it. So we go ahead and eat it, but then we're going to say to ourselves or to somebody else, how could I have done that? So we turn to the mind for some assistance. Help me out. Explain why it was okay. And the mind could always come up with, it could be very twisted and distorted, and always come up with some kind of explanation, rationalization, why it was okay. So that's the difference between the ways of holiness and the ways of unholiness. Does one begin to process things in the mind and then give birth to the healthy emotions, or first process things through the feelings of the heart and then find the intellect to explain, rationalize, and justify that? So, what is the function? What is the behavior? What is the content of this unholy soul? So the obvious answer to that is when one engages in the practice of sin, whether through your thoughts, sinful thoughts, or words, sinful words that could be harming, or sinful behavior. Of course, when you engage in those three garments of behavior, then that is the content garbing the fuel, the mind and the heart of the unholy soul. But not just that. And here's another groundbreaking idea of the Tanya. Even when one engages in casual behavior, mundane behavior, thoughts, words, behaviors, actions, which are not sinful, they're just casual and mundane, they too may come from the unholy soul. Because recall that the unholy soul is rooted in the level of klipa, of these peels and these shells called klipa noga, the klipa of light. Meaning that even within this soul, there is some level of goodness. It's just a little bit concealed, but it could be discovered. Moreover, another word for this soul is not just klipa, but it's also sitra achra. Sitra achra means the other side. Anything that's on the other side of holiness. What's holiness? Holiness is any person, any behavior, anything which is completely surrendered to the will, the desire, the instructions of God. So whenever you or your behavior is surrendered to the will of God, meaning that every choice of yours and every behavior of yours is motivated by what the Torah would want, whether it's an actual mitzvah, an actual instruction that God gives, or whether it's a casual thought, word, or behavior, but there's a motivation, there's a goal, there's an agenda to promote and advance the will of God, that is holiness. But the moment there is no such agenda, the moment that a person is behaving not in a sinful way, even in a casual way, but it's just empty. It's empty of any true purpose, any true meaning, any true advancement of the will of God and the Torah, that is rooted in the unholy soul, which is a very groundbreaking, challenging idea, because it forces us to be very much on guard and to always be critical and analytical of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And every single one of our behaviors ought to be motivated by promoting the will and the intention of the Torah and of the purpose of life. And the moment that it's not in that vein, it's not coming from a place of holiness, even if it's not sin, and even if it's not harmful to oneself or to another. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe concludes today's portion. Any person, even one person, who's studying Torah or performing a mitzvah or doing something with the intention of promoting, of advancing the will of Torah and of God, that's always in a state of holiness. Shechina shora bahem, the presence of God is always residing in them and together with them. So God is always with you. The presence of holiness is there. Actually, he adds, if you have 10 people together, like the minyan, for example, the idea of 10 people always guarantees the presence of the Shekhinah. Even if the gathering of the 10 people is not such a holy gathering, it's not engaging in such a holy act, but if you bring 10 people together, that's like a circuit, a connection which guarantees the presence of the Shekhinah, which is so important to bring people together in a unified way. If, however, a person is not engaged in that kind of behavior, that's a state of unholiness. And this is a complete redefinition of what is unholy, because it's not necessarily synonymous with sin or harmful, damaging behavior, but it's synonymous with anything that doesn't serve to promote our true purpose and the true purpose of the creation of the world. More about this in tomorrow's lesson. Have a great day. God bless you.